Now, let us continue because we have got another amazing expert from the same domain, Miss Sheril Christopher. She is EHS Country Manager, Environment, Health, Safety Country Manager, and Diverse Ability Network Chair, and EHS Global Auditor at 3M India Limited. Sheril. I'm okay, I'm pronouncing she as she, it's she. Okay, Sheril. Can you just wave? She's the person I'm referring to. Environmental engineer and postgraduate in industrial safety. Her professional career has spanned over 2 decades working at AT&S, Vedanta Group's 3M India, GE Healthcare. She's passionate in driving EHS cultural activation and concepts of safety. She provides insights to leadership pan-India on risk opportunities, implementing health and wellness. Ladies and gentlemen, huge round of applause as we welcome Ms. Sheril Christopher.
Thank you.
Is yours.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I don't have much of numbers in my presentation, so I thought most of you are MSMEs here. Just raise hand who are representing MSMEs here. Okay, so I hope my slide deck will help in the next 10 minutes what we interact. I will be asking you a lot of questions in between, so feel free to stop me whenever you feel that there is a doubt on this slide, okay? So the topic given to me was how to bring the strategies which can help both corporates and MSMEs. We are in a very sensitive phase of industrialization in India where we have big corporates, but we also have small MSMEs supporting these big corporates. And the ESG structure in India is in a very critical point where the top 1,000 listed companies are required by law that you have to declare not only your company's footprint, but also raw materials where you source from, and when the product goes to the community or the market, how it is impacting the society. So you need to measure upstream, your house as well, and the downstream. So with that thought process, I'll not touch more on ESG part because already Guru covered, right? Now, when it comes to MSME point of view, what does E stand for? When you're having a small manufacturing unit, do you have the consent to operate? Simple. Do you have a diesel generator to ensure the continuous operation? If your diesel generator is having a 14 kVA, then yes, you need a air consent. Are you using more than 10,000 liters of water for your manufacturing? If yes, then you need a water consent. Are you producing a hazardous waste? Because if you're having a DG, then you will be having a hazardous waste because waste oil and used oil comes out of it, right? Do you have the hazardous waste consent also with you? These are very simple things and normally MSMEs will not be aware of it, okay? Now, what is the role of a corporate? Now, if corporate is engaging with MSMEs, take care of this part. How does your downstream is acting on these points? Then, obviously, when you say an MSME is involved in manufacturing, you will be having people to work with, right? Are these people hired on a proper employability metrics? Are the pay parity being checked? Are the leave properly given? Are the wages properly given? Go and check their register of wages, everything. Because only when you as corporates do this, will a social equity come, right? The next, governance is nothing but how your environment and the social, both these are merged together in a structured framework. And why we have to do all this? Guru in the previous session, he beautifully captured that Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, IPCC. You see the first one here? They released a report in 2021, and the report was quite shocking, which said, we were expecting the global temperatures to increase by 1.5 degrees by 2050. But what the report says is the temperature increase may already happening and the impact is as close as 2040. What does that mean for all of us? For people who in the business, we may think that, okay, there's some good movie thing which Al Gore did. Maybe we may not be alive to experience that. Sorry, all will be alive when the 2040 temperature hits 1.5. And in my next slides, I'll tell you what does that mean for we as general citizen of any country or as the people who drive the economy. Okay? Now, every company aspires to be net zero. Infosys is already net zero, right? How can others be net zero? Now, we need to have the most of us who are working in the corporates, we do get the funding, we do get the strategies, but how can the MSMEs be handheld in that? Simple thing. If you're an MSME, the government has schemes. If you put the solar rooftop, you can claim that expenses from the government. There are policies around it. How many of you are aware of it? Okay. Next, circular economy. When COVID-19 hit, most of us were in a rude shock how fragile is your supply chain network is. When the war in the Ukraine and Russia hit, almost all the containers were stopped in the Suez Canal, right? You knew how important it is to develop your own homegrown supply chain network. When the temperature increases, it's not only the coastal people who are affected. Ocean is your seventh economy. Out of the 10 biggest economy, not seventh, sorry, eighth. Ocean is the 8th biggest economy. Increase in temperature will also stir up severe extreme weather storms. When these weather storms occur, the containers which are coming from US to India can also go inside the ocean. Right? Simple thing. Economy does get hit. Temperature increases, yes, impacts your economy. Clean energy. Right? Clean energy means you have to utilize all that is available in nature, whether it is tidal, whether it is solar, whether it is your geothermal. Unfortunately, geothermal is not in India, but other sources of renewable energy, how you can empower your business with that. Otherwise, you have highest windmill in Chitradurga. There is something called as wheeling energy. You can trade the wheeling energy. You also can get this clean energy from the BESCOM. You can have the trade agreements drafted. I don't want to take energy from a thermal power plant. I will buy this energy from a windmill. Possible. Explore these options. I'll quickly go to the ESG regulations. The world has seen a very steady roadmap and growth in ESG regulation. It started way back with US SEC inducing the legislation for the public companies to go and disclose their environmental footprint. But over the years, from there we have seen all the European Union, they have to disclose the Sustainable Development Report. Then ISSB, International Standard for Sustainable Board, they consolidate the report for ESG disclosure, with India coming with BRSR. Business responsibility, social responsibility. SEBI has mandated that every top 1,000 companies in India, you have to go and disclose what is your ESG framework. With that, I'll go to the next slide. Now, emerging sustainability landscape in India, our apex think tank, Niti Aayog, they just released a report in July, this month, and they've said the sustainability rating, we India are at 70. Okay? And where were we in few years back, 2019, 2020, we were at 60. Which means that in every field we are making progress. And the CEO of Niti Aayog quotes this, that India is making a sustainable progress. Most of the targets we have already reached, and few we will be reaching as early as 2030. And what are those goals? I'll tell you in the next slide. Now, BRSR already, I talked about that. Consumer demand for sustainable products. Most of the consumers nowadays are becoming conscious about what product I buy. Is my spend, what I'm going to put on a product, is it causing an environmental pollution? Is it causing an increase in the energy consumption? Or is it creating a sustainable development? And when you have an educated workforce, educated citizen, they will ask you right question. Be prepared to answer them. Just because you're an MSME, you cannot escape from these actions or the questions, right? Next, government regulation. Government of India, let me tell you, I've been in this environment field for more than 2 decades now. The kind of rules and stringency what has come in the last 5 to 6 years, we had not seen so far. And Guru can resonate that with me because we are heading the country in every state. We see this new regulations coming up. What does it mean? companies are being questioned and also asked, reduce your emissions, irrespective corporate or an MSME. If you're producing wastewater, you need to have it under certain limits, tolerance limits. Are you putting those treatment plants at your facility? You need to reduce the waste. Are you making investment to reduce the waste? Those are stringent regulations. Recently, you might have seen the extended producer responsibility, EPR, for plastic waste, right? You need to see the kind of regulations that is upcoming and see, are you prepared for that, right? And if you are not prepared, ask the companies with whom you work, because they have the access to every new upcoming regulation that is coming up. Next, labor standards. Labor standards have become, we had this new OHC code that has been released in September 2020. We also have the labor code also released. Implementation is going on, but it's already taken shape, which means that you need to have a transparent labor policy. You need to have equality for men and women when you give the wages. Along with that, long-term value creation. If a company invests in sustainability, I'm repeating, if a company invests in sustainability, they create a brand and reputation for themselves. They know how to manage their risks well. If you are an MSME, you need not think big. Sit down and just write down on a paper, what are those areas where I can contribute for the environment? If you are at an X level, how can you come to X minus 1? Just 1% you come down. Okay? How you can make your businesses risk-free so that you will lower the cost of manufacturing, because of which you will have more money left with you to invest back in your business. Okay? Every wrong product manufactured is a cost to business, right? How can you eliminate that? The next one. How many of you know about India's Panchamrit? Okay, one person knows. Okay. COP26, which city it was held in? COP26? Glasgow, 2021, okay? And in this, it's a very important year because India, for the first time, our Prime Minister, he announced to the world that, yes, India, though we are not highest in the emission, though we consume very less energy compared to the other countries, we make a commitment of reducing the emissions by using the Panchamrit ideology. They also came up with a term and mantra called as LIFE, lifestyle and environment. This was the word coined by the Prime Minister, which said that we as Indians, we need to develop our manufacturing or all the operations in such a way that we blend with nature. We don't pollute the planet, but we can bring a sustainable development by taking care of the nature. And this, when he said, he told 5 things India is going to do. And this is important. For corporates, this is important. For MSMEs, this is important. Because if you are operating in India, you need to be part of this big journey where India aspires to be at. Our Prime Minister has told we need to have a net zero by 2070. Few companies are already there. Few companies have not started their journey. How you can start your journey today? How can you know the policies and the subsidies available with the government and make this decision now? Next, reduction of the total projected carbon emissions by 1 billion ton. So this was announced in 2021. In a span of 9 years, we have to reduce more than 1 billion ton of carbon. This is aspiration. Are you part of this journey? Think about it. Next, reduction of the carbon intensity of the economy by 45% of baseline 2005. We just heard what is the carbon intensity in the previous presentation, right? What is your carbon intensity at your company level? The next, increasing the renewable energy component by 50%. India is rich with resources. We have Thar Desert on one side, we have the highest rainfall in Meghalaya on the other side. We have the power of hydro We have the power of thermal. At the same time, right now, we have the power of wind and solar. Can we reduce thermal and increase the other renewable energy? By doing so, we can reach this target. And the last but not the least, increasing the non-fossil energy capacity by 500 gigawatt by 2050. So the takeaway here for corporates is, many of the corporates come from America, Europe, Australia. You bring the sustainability goals from those countries. Have you looked at our own country's sustainability goals? Have you merged that? If not, time to think about this is now. For MSMEs who have not started the journey of ESG, start working on simple terms. Start just replacing your lights with the LED bulbs. Your journey would already been begun. Okay, it's very simple. So I'll not take more about, on this slide, because this talks about what is the reporting framework in the different countries, and what is the rating agencies, and what is the verification, how it is done, and global goals and principles around ESG. Okay. This slide is important because India has seen in different years different regulations that has come up. We have seen the environmental protection law that came after Bhopal gas tragedy. We saw a lot of rules coming around the waste minimization, packaging, everything, extended producer responsibility. We also had CSR journey that began in 2014, right? But the more important now, where we are now in this year, see the last column here, okay? This year, all the companies which, if you are listed in SEBI, okay, then you need to disclose your ESG footprint mandatorily. It is going to become more stringent. Now, what is upcoming now is applicable reasonable assurance on BRSR core top 250 companies. If you're coming in the top 250 companies, then you need to do a reasonable assurance once again. And in the following year, which is in the year 25 and 26, not only in the facility where you work, but also from where you buy the raw materials and also where you sell the consumer products, you need to have the footprint measured there as well. Guru told in the previous session, scope 3, most of the companies don't measure. It will be made mandatory for top 250 companies. Are we there yet? Many of you MSMEs will be supporting to those 250 companies, right? If those companies have to report, then you have to be prepared. Role of MSMEs. Why we talk so much about MSMEs? You know, the MSMEs contribute for more than 48% of the export, which means that they are creating a lot amount of revenue through the industrial growth. They give employment for more than 110 million, 11 crore people are employed. The second sector which creates the huge employment next to agriculture is MSMEs. Okay, it's the second sector, but not that much attention is given. You also have just imagine when so many MSMEs are starting up, they start up in small place, a rural place, an underdeveloped place. When the companies start up there, the socio-economic standard of that place improves. The buying ability of that community increases. And that credit directly goes to the MSMEs. Right? Now, entrepreneurship. The reason why we say entrepreneurship is when the MSME come, no, they don't come up with all the ideas that is working in US or in Europe. We Indians are good in our own skills, our technology, our tools, which works for India, which can also be copied by the other countries. Example is Chandrayaan, the low-cost launch what we made. None of the other countries have even tried that, right? How can we take inspiration from those projects and make it locally applicable for us? But yes, the journey is not that good. Why? Now, first and the foremost is MSMEs have limited resource and limited human capital. Now is where the corporate have to help. Now, corporates are very good with finances. They are very good with human resources. Can we leverage some of this? Can you send at least 1 or 2 people from your companies to go and train the MSMEs. Need not be those companies linked. The industrial bodies like LCR, you can play a role. Be that middleman in between to transfer this knowledge. Next, your complexity of data management. One thing after writing the ESG reporting, what I have understood is you have to capture so much of data. How much of water you consume, how much of energy you consume, from where you consume this energy, what is the per capita energy consumption, everything. MSMEs don't have so much of bandwidth to capture this data. How can you help them with technology to capture this data? Because if 250 top listed companies have to go and declare, are the supporting supply chain even good at that? Lack of awareness. Many of them are not even aware of the new laws that is coming up. Okay? There is environmental compensation guidelines that got released in 2020. How many of you even know about this? Which says that if you violate even one particular emission than that is listed under your consent to operate, you can be penalized with some amount. There is a calculation for that. Go back and see this in the Central Pollution Control Board. So MSMEs will not be aware of this. We as corporates, how we can handhold them. We as industrial bodies, how we can handhold them. Make them aware of it. So, simple things. If a corporate goes to an MSME to have a tie-up, when it comes to E, just check, do they have the consent orders? If they are working in a factory where the power is used, if you turn on the switch, then you need to have a factory license if you employ more than 10 people in your workforce. How many of you have the factory license? If you are working in more than 15 meters of a building, then you need to have a fire license. Okay? Now it has changed. Bylaws got changed. 21. How many of us are aware of that? Next, S part. And the investment in S is very less, people. The investments goes majorly to environment and governance, but the social part gets only 14% investment. And that is something corporates have to look. Can we start with basics? This is what I would recommend the MSMEs start with the basics. Okay? Get the licenses. If any one of you are confused with what are the licenses you have, approach your industry body or the corporates with whom you work. The next one is utilize the government support for the policy framework. Now, if you are starting small, okay, and if you want to become an ESG compliant company, then there are certifications which is at 3 levels. Level 1, which is called bronze, level 2, which is silver, level 3, which is gold. And there are 20 parameters in the certification. You can choose which you want to go for the certification. Okay? And based on the number of parameters you use, it can be health and safety, it can be waste management, it can be energy reduction, it can be anything. There are 20 parameters. Pick the ones which you can do immediately. Get the certification. And the cost of this certification, the government will give you through subsidies. Go for an ISO certification. Cost of certification, government will give you through subsidies. That's the next one. Green finances. If you want the money for green financing, then yes, government has subsidies for that. Simple example, use your rooftop to put the solar panels. Government will help you with that financing. And this is my last slide. Okay. Now, corporates have to merge the country from where they operate, whether it is US or Europe, merge those goals with the goals of India. Panchamrit, very important. The next one, E. Many a times, we as EHS people, we get to hear that a lot of cost is involved when it comes to environment. Don't look it as a cost. This is the investment what you're making to secure your future. S, as I said, please have more focus here. When you visit a small company for a tie-up, check whether there is a child labor in that company or not. Who is the person who brings you the coffee or tea? Is it a child labor? If that, then how can you make that simple step to eradicate that? The next one is responsible sourcing. Do not buy the material from the places where there is a conflict. Do not engage with the countries where there is a civil war going on. Because if you buy the material, somebody asked about the raw material in the previous session, if you resource the material from the conflicted countries, you are supporting some social injustice there. And last, also, please check, do those small companies have idea about POSH? Do they have idea about employing people with disability? Okay. And the last part, government. Now, governance is something that you think that, okay, I'll take a license and I'm done with it. No. You need to be aware of the changing regulation framework in the country. Okay. And because investors are becoming more careful in which company they put the money. You may be very good in technology. You may be very good in bringing a low-cost product, or you can be an economical one. But if an investor sees that in the long term, this company is not taking care of a sustainable growth and employing proper people, giving an equal pay for the men and women, then investor may not be interested in those ideas in the future. So time to think. So be human, okay, be responsible, and be always in the liberty. You can exercise your freedom, but in the liberty of the governance. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Please stay on stage, as we would like to felicitate you. Sheril.
Yes.
I would like to apologize for mispronouncing your name. I'm slowly getting used to it. I was by-hearting it. Sheril. Like Japa Mardange. Now, one of my mentors said, now he teaches entrepreneurship. He said, as an entrepreneur, you should not measure success just by what you're going to achieve. You should also measure it by what you had to give up in order to achieve whatever you achieved. So similarly, after listening to your talk, I believe from a business perspective, we should not measure success in business just with what we have produced, what we have built, what we have managed. We should also measure it with what we have destroyed along the way. That is what I got out of this particular session. Ladies and gentlemen, huge round of applause once again for Miss Sheril Christopher.